Have you ever been absolutely 100% certain about something, only to discover later that you were completely mistaken? We are going to expose 15 of the most common and powerful illusions your brain uses to shape your perception of the world. Fact 1. The confirmation bias. This is the big one, the parent of many other biases. It's our brain's tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports our pre-existing beliefs or values. We don't like to be wrong, and our brain will work overtime to protect us from that uncomfortable feeling. Think about the last time you considered a major purchase, maybe a new phone or a car. Once you decided which model you liked, did you suddenly start noticing it everywhere? Did you find yourself clicking on positive reviews and articles about it, while quickly scrolling past the negative ones? That is your confirmation bias at work. It's not that there are suddenly more of those cars on the road. It's that your brain has activated a filter. It's actively looking for evidence that you made the right choice and conveniently ignoring evidence to the contrary. This happens with our friendships, our political views, and even our simple opinions about a movie. We build a comfortable reality bubble around ourselves, and the confirmation bias acts as its loyal bodyguard, only letting in the things that won't pop it. Fact 2. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or the frequency illusion. This one works as a partner in crime to confirmation bias. Have you ever learned a new word or discovered a new song, and then suddenly you start hearing it everywhere? You read the word in a book the next day, and then you hear someone say it on a podcast. It feels like the universe is sending you a sign that this thing has suddenly become incredibly popular overnight. But it hasn't. This is a two-part illusion. The first part is selective attention. When you first learn about something new, your brain subconsciously flags it as important. It's on the lookout. The second part is our old friend, confirmation bias. When you see it again, your confirmation bias kicks in and says, "See, I told you this thing is everywhere." Confirms your new reality. The word, the car, or the song was always there, present with the same frequency. The only thing that changed was you. Your brain just learned to see it, creating the illusion that it's suddenly all around you. Fact 3. The Dunning-Kruger effect. This is a fascinating and often humbling cognitive bias that relates to our perception of our own competence. In simple terms, it's a bias where people with low ability in a certain area tend to overestimate their ability. The less you know, the less equipped you are to recognize how little you know. Think of the amateur singer who believes they are ready for the world stage after one lesson, or the person who reads one article on economics and feels qualified to solve the national debt. They aren't just being arrogant. They genuinely lack the self-awareness to see the vast gaps in their knowledge. Their incompetence robs them of the ability to recognize their own incompetence. On the flip side, the Dunning-Kruger effect also suggests that experts often do the opposite. Highly skilled individuals tend to underestimate their relative competence. They know so much about their field that they are keenly aware of every nuance, every exception, and every remaining mystery. Because the task feels easy to them, they incorrectly assume it must be easy for everyone else too. So the novice is full of unearned confidence, while the expert is plagued by a touch of doubt. Fact 4. The anchoring bias. Your brain is terrible at judging the value of something in a vacuum. It needs a starting point, a reference, an anchor. And this bias describes our tendency to rely far too heavily on the very first piece of information we receive when making a decision. This initial piece of information becomes the anchor that influences all subsequent judgments. This is a classic tool in negotiations and marketing. Imagine you see a jacket with a price tag of $500. That seems incredibly expensive, but then you see it's on sale for $250. Suddenly, it feels like a fantastic bargain. Your brain isn't evaluating whether the jacket is actually worth $250. Instead, it's anchored to the initial price of $500, and everything is judged in relation to that anchor. The deal feels good because of the perceived drop in price, not necessarily the actual value. This happens outside of shopping too. A doctor's first impression of a patient's symptoms can anchor their diagnosis, making it harder to consider other possibilities. The first number mentioned in a salary negotiation often sets the entire range for the conversation. Whatever that first piece of data is, it drops an anchor in your mind, and your thoughts will rarely drift far from it. Fact 5. The sunk cost fallacy. This is an error in thinking that keeps us trapped in bad situations long after we should have left. It's the voice in your head that says you cannot stop now because of all the time, money, or effort you have already invested. Imagine you paid $20 for a movie ticket. 30 minutes into the film, you realize it's absolutely terrible. You are not enjoying it one bit. What do? Many people will force themselves to sit through the entire 2 hours. Why? Because they don't want to waste the $20. But here is the logical trap. The $20 is already gone. It is a sunk cost. You can never get it back. Your choice is not between wasting $20 or getting your money's worth. Your choice is between two future options. Option 1 is you waste 2 more hours of your life on a bad movie. Option 2 is you leave and spend those 2 hours doing something you actually enjoy. The rational choice is to leave. Yet our brains hate the idea of a loss. The feeling of having wasted something is so powerful that we will choose to waste even more just to avoid admitting the initial investment was a mistake. This fallacy applies to so much more than movies. It's why people continue pouring money into a failing business, stay in a job they despise, or even finish a 400-page book they find boring. The logic is always the same. I have come this far, I cannot back out now. But the truth is, the past investment is irrelevant to the future decision. Cutting your losses is often the smartest move you can make. Fact 6. The gambler's fallacy. This is a deep-seated misunderstanding of probability and randomness. It's the belief that if something happens more frequently than normal during a given period, it will happen less frequently in the future or vice versa. The classic example is flipping a coin. If you flip a fair coin and get heads 5 times in a row, what do you think the next flip will be? The gambler's fallacy whispers in your ear that it has to be tails. The universe needs to balance things out. But this is completely wrong. Each coin flip is an independent event. The coin has no memory of the past 5 flips. The odds for the 6th flip are exactly the same as they were for the first. 50-50. The universe does not owe you a tails. This thinking is the engine that powers many casino games. A roulette player sees the ball land on red 10 times in a row and becomes convinced that black is now overdue. They start placing larger and larger bets on black, falling deeper into the trap. But this isn't just about gambling. We apply this faulty logic in everyday life. If you have a string of bad days, you might think you are due for a good one. Or if a baseball player strikes out 3 times, a fan might say he's due for a hit. We search for patterns in random noise because it gives us a sense of control and predictability over an uncertain world. But randomness, by its very nature, doesn't play by our rules of fairness or balance. Fact 7. The availability heuristic. Here is another mental shortcut that dramatically skews our perception of reality, especially when it comes to risk. The availability heuristic is a simple rule our brain uses. If you can think of it easily, it must be important and more common than things that are harder to recall. Why are so many people more afraid of flying in an airplane than of driving a car? Statistically, you are vastly more likely to be harmed in a car. But plane crashes, when they happen, are catastrophic, dramatic, and receive enormous media coverage. The images are vivid and stick in our minds. When you think about travel risks, the memory of a plane crash is highly available. The memory of a common car accident is not. Therefore, your brain concludes that flying is a huge risk. This heuristic is a major reason why news and media have such a powerful effect on our anxieties. If the news spends a week talking about shark attacks, we become more afraid of swimming in the ocean, even if the statistical risk is infinitesimally small. The dramatic story is available, while the mundane statistic that you are more likely to be harmed by a falling coconut is not. We don't build our sense of the world on data and statistics. We build it on stories. And the most vivid, emotional, and easily recalled stories are the ones that shape our fears and our decisions, often leading us to worry about the wrong things entirely. Fact 8. The halo effect. This cognitive bias is a prime example of how our brain loves to take shortcuts when judging other people. The halo effect occurs when our overall impression of a person, especially a single positive trait, influences how we feel and think about their other, unrelated characteristics. The most classic example is physical attractiveness. Studies have repeatedly shown that we tend to automatically assume attractive people are also more intelligent, funnier, kinder, and more successful than less attractive people. The positive trait of beauty casts a shining halo that makes all their other traits look better. It is a powerful form of mental stereotyping. This isn't a conscious decision. We don't think to ourselves, this person is good-looking, therefore they must be a competent accountant. It happens instantly and unconsciously. And of course, it works in reverse. This is sometimes called the horns effect. If you have a negative first impression of someone, you are more likely to interpret their every action in a negative light. If a coworker you like works late, you see them as dedicated. If a coworker you dislike works late, you might see them as an inefficient worker who cannot manage their time. The halo effect extends beyond people to brands, products, and institutions. If you love one product made by a company, you are far more likely to trust their other products, even without any evidence. We let one single quality, positive or negative, color our entire perception, saving us the difficult work of making a nuanced and fair judgment. Fact 9. The just world fallacy. This is a subtle but powerful bias that helps us sleep at night, but often at the cost of compassion. It is the deep, often unconscious belief that the world is a fundamentally fair and orderly place where people get what they deserve. Good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. When we hear about a misfortune that has befallen someone else, our brain, guided by this fallacy, immediately starts searching for a reason. Why did they lose their job? They were probably lazy. Why were they a victim of a scam? They must have been greedy or foolish. This isn't necessarily because we are cruel people. It's a psychological defense mechanism. If we can convince ourselves that the world is just, and that people bring misfortune upon themselves through their own actions or character, then it means we are safe. As long as we are good, careful, and smart, we can avoid a similar outcome. The alternative is terrifying, to accept that the world can be random and chaotic, and that terrible things can happen to good people for no reason at all. To accept that would be to accept our own vulnerability. The dark side of this comforting belief is that it leads directly to victim blaming. It makes it harder for us to empathize with others' suffering because to do so would be to acknowledge the cracks in our shield of a just world. Fact 10. The fundamental attribution error. This is a bias that profoundly affects how we judge others compared to how we judge ourselves. It's the tendency to believe that what other people do reflects their fundamental character, while what we do is a result of the situation. Let's take a simple, universal example: driving. If another driver cuts you off, what is your first thought? It is likely something along the lines of, that person is a selfish, reckless jerk. You attribute their action to their internal personality. Now, what if you are the one who accidentally cuts someone off? You don't think, I am a selfish, reckless jerk. You think, I am running late for an important meeting, the sun was in my eyes, and this is a poorly designed intersection. You attribute your action to external, situational factors. We do this because we have full access to our own complex inner world. We know our intentions, our pressures, and the context of our lives. When we look at others, we have none of that information. All we see is the action. So our brain takes a shortcut and assumes the action is a direct reflection of the person. This error is a primary source of conflict and misunderstanding in relationships, at work, and in society. We hold others to a standard of character while giving ourselves a situational pass. Fact 11. The bandwagon effect. This is the bias of social conformity, a powerful pull that our brains find almost impossible to resist. The bandwagon effect is our tendency to do or believe something simply because many other people are doing or believing it. The perceived popularity of an idea or action becomes its own proof of value. Think about a restaurant with a long line of people waiting outside. You immediately assume the food must be excellent. The line itself is the advertisement. This bias governs fashion trends, viral internet challenges, and even the rise and fall of stocks in the market. When we see a stock price soaring because everyone is buying, we feel a powerful fear of missing out and a desire to jump on the bandwagon, often without doing our own research. This instinct is deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. For our ancestors, belonging to the group was critical for survival. Agreeing with the tribe and following its norms meant safety and access to resources. Going against the grain could mean being cast out, a very dangerous prospect. So, our brains evolved to equate consensus with correctness. This is why testimonials and user reviews are so effective in marketing. We are wired to trust the wisdom of the crowd, even when the crowd might be completely wrong. Fact 12. The optimism bias. For all its errors and glitches, your brain also has a built-in feature that keeps you hopeful and moving forward. The optimism bias is the belief that you are less likely than other people to experience negative events. It's a subtle but pervasive form of self-deception that affects the vast majority of the population. We hear statistics about divorce rates, but we believe our own marriage will last forever. We know the risks of an unhealthy lifestyle, but we feel that we personally will be spared from the consequences. We think we are better than the average driver, smarter than the average person, and less likely to get into a financial mess. Of course, it is statistically impossible for almost everyone to be better than average. This bias is not entirely a bad thing. It's what motivates us to start new projects, apply for challenging jobs, and invest in the future. Without it, we might be paralyzed by a realistic assessment of all the things that could go wrong. The optimism bias protects our mental well-being by reducing anxiety. The danger, however, is when this optimism leads to recklessness. It's what makes us skip wearing a seatbelt, neglect saving for retirement, or put off a visit to the doctor. It's a constant balancing act between the healthy hope that fuels our ambitions and the dangerous delusion of invulnerability. Fact 13. The placebo effect. This is one of the most mysterious and powerful demonstrations of the mind's ability to influence the body. The placebo effect occurs when a person experiences a real, measurable improvement in their condition after receiving a treatment with no actual therapeutic value, like a sugar pill or a saline injection. The key is belief. If a person believes they are receiving a real medical treatment, their brain can trigger real physiological changes. It can release its own natural pain-relieving chemicals, reduce stress hormones, and alter heart rate and blood pressure. The effect is not just in the person's head. It can be seen in brain scans and measured in blood tests. What is truly fascinating is the sheer complexity of this bias. Studies have shown that 2 sugar pills work better than 1. A placebo injection is more effective than a placebo pill. A placebo that is more expensive is more powerful than a cheap one. Even the color of the pill matters. Blue pills are associated with calming effects, while red pills are associated with stimulation. The placebo effect demonstrates the incredible, almost magical connection between our expectations and our physical reality. It is a testament to the fact that one of the most potent ingredients in any recovery process is the mind itself. The belief that we are getting better is a powerful medicine. Fact 14. The framing effect. This bias shows that how information is presented to us can dramatically alter our decisions, even if the core information remains exactly the same. We don't respond to facts in isolation. We respond to the frame they are put in. Imagine a health product is being sold. One version is advertised as 95% fat-free. Another is advertised as containing 5% fat. The information is identical, yet which one sounds healthier and more appealing? For most people, 95% fat-free sounds much better. The positive frame of what is absent, the fat, is more persuasive than the negative frame of what is present. Here is another example. A doctor can tell a patient that a certain surgery has a 90% survival rate. Or, the doctor could say that the surgery has a 10% mortality rate. The second frame is much more frightening, even though it conveys the exact same statistical reality. We are drawn to choices that are framed in terms of gains and are repelled by choices framed in terms of losses. This is why politicians, advertisers, and leaders pay so much attention to language. They understand that by carefully framing a policy or a product, they can guide our choices without changing any of the underlying facts. They are not lying. They are simply leveraging a built-in glitch in our mental processing. Fact 15. The hindsight bias. This is the "I knew it all along" phenomenon. It's the tendency to look back on an event after it has occurred and believe that you would have, or could have, predicted the outcome. Once we know the result of something, whether it's a sports game, a stock market crash, or a historical event, our brain immediately begins to rewrite history. It starts connecting the dots in a neat, linear fashion that makes the outcome seem obvious and inevitable. We forget the uncertainty and the multitude of other possibilities that existed before the event happened. Think about a surprise twist in a movie. After the reveal, you might think, of course, all the clues were there. But before the reveal, those clues were just part of the general noise of the story. The hindsight bias makes it difficult to learn from our mistakes because we tend to believe our mistakes were not really mistakes at all, but part of a predictable path. It also makes us unfairly harsh judges of others' decisions. When a business venture fails, we look back and say they should have seen the warning signs. We forget that, at the time, those signs were buried in a sea of conflicting information. We turn the unpredictable past into a simple, predictable story, casting ourselves as the wise narrator who saw it all coming.